It's March Madness, which also means madness with the Cardinals roster construction and crunch as spring training comes to an end. This weekend, we expect to see and hear what the final roster is going to be for the St. Louis Cardinals going into opening day. Still have question marks about the center field job and what that will end up meaning for the bench as well. Have question marks about whether to run a 6-man rotation and then how that could influence a bullpen. And also, what on earth is their starting lineup going to look like going into this year? We're going to give our final predictions before we get more information on that on this episode of Dealing the Cards. Hey, welcome back to Dealing the Cards. I'm Josh, joined by Andrew and Sandy as always, and it's always a good day when the Cubs are 5th in the NL Central, sitting at 0-2, while the Cardinals, Reds, Pirates, and Brewers are all 500 at 0-0. So I don't know how long we'll be able to say that, guys, that the Cubs are in last and the Cardinals are above them in the standings, but we're going to roll with that as long as it's the take. But I think the main thing we want to talk about today, next week, I'm sure we'll do kind of like a final Cardinals preview for the year. We'll kind of preview opening day. And then a week from now, it's opening day. We'll get to talk about real baseball here soon. But obviously, spring training is winding down, and the Cardinals have alluded to the fact that they'd like to have some of those major roster decisions kind of figured out this weekend so that they can send guys to Memphis or send guys know that they're solidified in St. Louis and then start getting ready for opening day a week from now. And so that should mean we have some clarity on some of these roster battles, constructions, all that kind of stuff that's been going on throughout camp. And I think the buzz one, right? Obviously center field, where you've got Victor Scott, who's the one of the top prospects in the Cardinal system. I guess he's not a prospect anymore, but one of the top young guys in the Cardinal system, who's fighting for center field. Obviously last year made it as the opening day center fielder because of some injuries and struggled. Made some swing changes at the end of last year, has come in and had a really strong camp. You have Michael Ciani, who has had an awful camp and seems to have been the favorite coming into camp to be the center fielder. You also have the Lars Nootbaar dynamic, where I don't think necessarily they want him to be the long-term center fielder, but could they roll with Nootbaar in center field to begin the year until they feel confident in Scott or until some of the log jams, other spots on the rosters open up? So we'll go through each of the position battles that we kind of still see there and give you kind of our full take on the roster. We'll start today with center field, and then we'll see how that impacts the bench, rotation, bullpen, and starting lineup. But let's just go around the horn real quick, give our picks, and then kind of talk through how we see this breaking down. So, Sandy, who do you think the Cardinals center fielder is going to be on opening day?
This is such a tough one. I've struggled with this because part of me wants to say it's going to be Victor Scott, because, he's made some waves in camp again this year. I know a lot of people still view him as the future of the team, but I just don't think the Cardinals are going to go with him on opening day this year. I think they're going to leave him in AAA with a little more time, maybe a little more seasoning before he comes back up to the major league level. I don't know. Maybe this is more wishful thinking than anything, but I'm going to go with Lars Nootbaar as the starting center fielder on opening day. I think this is the right call for the Cardinals. I think if they want to, maximize their lineup, I think if they want to have the best possible offense right away, it's got to be Nootbaar in center. He's already one of the best hitters on the team. We know he's capable of playing center field defense. Yes, there are health questions, but that's what I've got. I've got Lars Nootbaar in center field.
All right, Andrew, what do you, and again, so saying you think that's what's going to happen, not that's necessarily what you.
I do think so.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it's guaranteed. I think it's, I think there's multiple possibilities,
for
but
sure.
It's got a plurality. I'll say that.
And I'll just reiterate here. We're making our predictions. So we're not necessarily saying like, oh, Victor Scott was terrible. Shouldn't have been the opening day center fielders. We're predicting what we think the Cardinals are going to do. Andrew, what do you think the Cardinals are going to do with center field?
I
think I know where you're going. I see in your face.
Oh, no. I feel like I don't trust this organization to go with anyone except for Michael Ciani, unfortunately. And it's been, they just keep giving him run. They keep running him out there, and I don't know. It looks like there's going to be one of the young guys. I mean, if Ciani starts in center, that means two of the young guys are not starting on opening day, which is really not what you want to see. And Sandy's just disappeared. I've made him collapse.
I had a malfunction with my chair. We're fixing it real quick, though. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. But yeah, no, I mean, it seemed like at winter warm-up that everyone was super high on Ciani, and it still seems like they're high on Ciani because they keep putting him in there, and sometimes he bats leadoff for them.
I think it's more about getting him at bats. It's not.
Which like we don't need to see Michael Ciani take more at bats. Like, please stop. Sure. So I think that's where they're going to go, and they're probably going to try it for a little bit, and then he's going to have some good BABIP blood for the first month, and they're just going to roll with him for the whole year. It'd be great. It should be Lars Nootbaar. but I just don't see them doing that. I don't think they're going to want to risk injury with Nootbaar, and I just think that for whatever reason they're obsessed with Siani, and that's what's going to happen.
So neither of you guys think it should be Scott. Not only are you not predicting it, but you also don't think it should be.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, I thought maybe one of you would. I also debated this, and if honestly, I might change my opinion an hour from now because it could. I think it literally could go any of the three directions. But I'm also going to say Lars Nootbaar is going to be the opening day center fielder. And here's kind of the thought process behind it. One, I think they are going to be cautious with Victor Scott, and they would rather call him up a little bit later when they're like, okay, he for sure is ready to go. We're not going to have to do this thing where he starts out in April, is really slow. We have to send him back down and kill his confidence again. Also, injuries will happen. And so, like, say Nootbaar goes down, Burleson goes down, Walker goes down, like, it'll readjust things and open up center field potentially. I also don't think they want him on the bench. And so if he's not starting in center field, he's not making the roster. So that's where I guess I previewed he's not going to make a roster for me because he's going to end up in Memphis. I think they want Burleson to get at bats. And I don't think they're going to sacrifice Gorman in order to do that. So the only way to really make that happen then is to get Donovan into the outfield, Nootbaar in center, and you've got Burleson DHing more often then. So that's kind of where I've got Lars Nootbaar as the starting center fielder. You start to see him kind of go back to that well a little bit in camp. I don't think it necessarily means he's like every day in center field. I think you'll see a certain center fielder that Andrew mentioned make the roster and play some center field because of that. But I think Nootbaar will probably play center field 4 or 5 out of every 7 games in order to make those lineups work, or at least they maybe less frequently against left-handed pitching. Actually, I don't know. Maybe that's not true either because you want to Burleson's so bad against lefties, you probably get Baker in on those days, but then he's so good against righties that's hard to sit him on those days. So, anyways, my point is I think Nootbaar is one of those guys they won't run way force. They want him playing as often as possible. Gorman is one of those guys. Walker's one of those guys. I think they want to get Burleson as many at bats as possible. But the only way to do that is if you put Nootbaar in center field right now. So I think we're. I mean, obviously we all gave our picks, and so Andrew, I'm interested to see how you think the bench will end up suiting out with Siani as the starting center fielder. But yeah, let's kind of move toward the bench then. So. Sandy, since you started us off, maybe you can give us your 4-man group from there. How do you see the bench shaking out now that your lineup has Nootbaar and I'm guessing Burleson's your DH then? Yeah.
So if I've got Burleson in the outfield, that means, or not Burleson. If I've got Nootbaar in the outfield, I'm out of sorts. If I've got him in the outfield, that means we're going to be potentially a little thinner in the infield because I'm probably thinking about trying to play Donovan in my outfield. And so if that happens, I do believe we're going to need a backup shortstop on the roster. And I think the Cardinals are going to go with Jose Fermin. They've rolled with him before. I don't get it because they don't trust him to be a big league shortstop. And I know Kareem's talked about this. I know you've talked about this, Josh. And I'm going to echo your point here. They do not trust Fermin to play shortstop. They don't let him play shortstop. They barely let him sub in as a shortstop. I know he won't really have to because you're going to have Mason win almost all year. But honestly, I would just rather see Donovan take some reps at shortstop and keep his bat in the lineup on days like that. But hey, it's fine. I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to go with Fermin. I think Baker's going to be on the bench. His power against left-handed pitching, very intriguing. I think Burleson is going to be on the bench. We had a discussion about him yesterday in our Birds on the Farm chat with Kareem. I know I'm not quite as bullish on him. I do think he's a valuable player against right-handed hitters, but you can't have him in the lineup every day because it's so bad against lefties at times. So I do believe he'll be a bench player for this team. He's just not like a viable defender right now. And then my last guy, I'm going to go with Siani. I think the defensive replacement with him as a defensive replacement is elite. He's got the ability to come in and help you lock down games. So my full group, this is kind of a basic group really, but it is Baker, Burleson, Fermin, and Siani.
With Pies as the backup catcher.
Correct. Yeah.
And then the DH spot kind of falls within that. Yep, that makes sense. Andrew, where you got?
Well, even sure Pies is going to be the backup catcher. No, I don't want to start.
True.
Yeah. I think Fermin is because they optioned Barrera already, so he won't be.
Well, I don't think have they officially done that yet?
I think they did.
Because I heard there's a guy who reported it, but I don't think I've seen an official move yet. But maybe they did.
I mean, I don't know, if when I say Siani will start in center, I don't know if he'll start every game in center. I think he'll get most of the starts in center for the start of the season. So you'll have Fermin there, Pajes, and then like Burleson kind of bouncing around. I know that they'll have him play some first, have Contreras DH some as well. And then who else? Well, Luke and Baker, I think, has to make the roster. He's just had too good of a spring and has that upside against left-handed pitching. Did I forget somebody? Is there another bench slot?
You had Pages, Burleson, Fermin, right?
Yeah.
And then Pages, Burleson, Fermin, Baker. So you got all your guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think Baker. I don't know. There's just too many guys. There's not enough spots for Ciani. I hope they see that, but I just like the amount that he's been playing this spring, what they've said about him, the track record. It just doesn't. I don't know. I want Ciani to not be on the roster, but these things don't happen.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I do think there's a possible world he doesn't make the roster, but I mean, I think in all of our scenarios right now, we've got him making it, right? I don't think, Sandy, you've got him on your bench, right?
Yeah, I've got him on my. I think it's really unlikely he doesn't make the roster.
Yeah. So, and again, just because you make the opening day roster doesn't mean you stick super long. So they could want to see it in April, and if it's bad, then they pull the plug. But my bench, very similar to your guys', is I'm going to go Jose Fermin as kind of like that backup shortstop utility option, probably 26-man who barely plays, but he makes the roster. Luke and Baker is that right-handed bat off the bench with Michael Ciani as their fourth outfielder, and then Pedro Pages as their backup catcher. When we talk about lineups, I'll talk about how that shifts a little bit. I think Sandy's got kind of the same view in their mind. Probably you as well, Andrew. Fermin making the roster as their backup shortstop is kind of weird to me. I mean, you alluded to it, Donovan. Sometimes I'll just call Sandy like Sonny Gray or like.
We're both a bit out of sorts today. We'll catch on.
Yeah, we'll catch on eventually. Sandy alluded to it. Like I'm confused about the Jose Fermin side of it because of the fact that they clearly don't trust him to be the shortstop. But maybe, I mean, this year I think they wanted the insurance policy of Brandon Crawford, not knowing that what Mason Wynn would for sure be. And so it's like, hey, if he's floundering, we've got a shortstop that we can go to, and we have someone to come off the bench. But like then he was good enough that basically Crawford was a throw-in player, but then he also played a little bit more often because Wynn had that back thing going on during the season. Obviously, he has a wrist soreness right now, so like that's something to watch. I don't know what I think Barrero will make the roster if Wynn somehow had to go on the IL. I don't think Sajacy makes it, but I think they want Wynn to be a 155 game guy where he's playing like 100, and so then it's like, okay, do they trust Fermin to play 7 games at shortstop?
They do.
I mean, I think 7 games that's like once a month that you get to play shortstop.
Like, at that point, I would just let Donovan play those games, and I would give that spot to somebody else. Like,
I guess in that scenario, you could give Koperniak a spot on the roster.
Yeah, I would give a fifth outfielder.
But my problem with that is then when does he play? Because if Donovan's playing shortstop once a month, like I think Koperniak then kind of mostly just sits there, and I don't think that he needs to play frequently to be on the roster. But I also don't think he should be playing never and be on the roster, which I think is what that Fermin role would be. So that's why I've been comfortable with Barrero being in that role, because it's like, hey, that guy could be interesting, but you also, if he doesn't play for a week, no one's going to care. And at least for me, you've got flexibility where you can put him second, third, left field, right field, shortstop. Koperniak, if you had him on the roster, I mean, you could put Donovan at shortstop on it, but then he's your guy who's like, he has to play every day. And so then it's like a day you want Donovan to have a rest, then your flexibility gets kind of put into a tough spot there. So I see why they go for me. So that I think that's mostly the position player group then. So we've named our roster. I mean, obviously we all have Pages and Herrera. We have Arenado, Wynn, Contreras, Nato, Gorm, all those guys making the roster. So we'll get into all that stuff here soon. But let's take a quick pause before we go to the pitching side of things to just thank a couple of our sponsors. First one is the presenting sponsor of the Deal and Cards podcast, and that's 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles, located at 9640 Alt Boulevard in Olivet. Open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards, and have the new selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from around the league. You gotta go check out all their products. You get signed cards from like a Michael McGreevy in there. You can go get other merch and stuff that they have in there. We know many of you already checked them out, so be sure to let them know that we sent you if you go. And I know from our Discord that there's some people flying in the St. Louis for opening day who are going to go check out 314 while they're here in town. So if you're going to opening day, go maybe swing by 314 on the way, or if you just live in the St. Louis area, they're awesome to check out. And again, it's not just baseball cards. If you're into NBA, NFL, Pokemon, F1, they had F1 cards in there. I think golf cards, like all kinds of stuff. So it's super fun. And we've really enjoyed our partnership with them. And we also want to talk about another partnership we have with Underdog Sports. The Deal in the Cards podcast is proud to be partnered with Underdog Sports, our favorite place to play fantasy games. You're now eligible to play in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, and 37 other U.S. states. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can win 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with our promo code CARDS to claim your first free pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. Hey, it's NCAA tournament time, March Madness. Sandy is just like
So
on
excited.
a heater with college picks this year, so definitely got to follow him. I think we gotta put some of your pick'ems out there for the tournament as we go through. But maybe we can just briefly talk about our brackets real quick. I know many of you are watching and have probably filled one out, so maybe let us know in the chat if you've got any hot takes. You got any special people in your final four, special teams in your final four. Sandy, what is your bracket looking like?
Well, I mean, I'm so excited that this is one of the best days of the year for me. The first 2 days of the tournament are so much fun. I already got an upset right. I picked McNeese, my Cowboys, over the Clemson Tigers, which was super fun for me. But I've got an exciting Final Four, I think. I know a lot of people think we're going to see another year, just like 2008, where we have 4 1 seeds make the Final Four. Jay Billis put that out on Twitter. I think there's no way. Very unlikely. But I've got my final game here. I've got Houston over St. John's. And then I've got Houston coming away with the win in the Final Four over, I believe, let me just check this real quick, pulling it up. Got Houston over Wisconsin and St. John's over Auburn in the Final Four.
Whoa.
So 2 1 seeds, a 2 seed, and a 3 seed making my Final Four. Some upsets in there. I was disappointed. I was hoping for a couple more today, but we've still got time. Alabama State hung tight with Auburn for a half. So there's been a lot of fun basketball today. Love the tournament. Yeah. It's a good time.
Not nearly as plugged in as you are, but my Final Four was Florida, Auburn, Duke, and Tennessee. Had Florida and Duke in my final, pretty chalk. Had Florida beating Duke. I do feel like it's a year where it's hard to pick against the one seeds and top seeds.
Really
I do have Houston going out pretty early. Gonzaga I have going to my Elite Eight, I think, or something. Drake I have going kind of far. I did pick some pretty big pick'ems, but my actual like 2 teams I wanted to pick were either Florida or St. John's. But obviously they face each other in the Elite Eight or Sweet 16. I can't remember which one, and so I had to go Florida there, and Florida go all the way. So Andrew, any picks you want to share from the March Madness for your bracket?
Yeah, I picked solely based on feeling. I play one bracket every year because I won one the first time I ever did it. I never watched college basketball before that. But I have Michigan State, Texas Tech, Duke, and Tennessee, and Duke over Michigan State in the final.
Okay.
I've been kind of
State to lose early to Marquette, so we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
That's fun. Okay, so maybe more bracket busters here. Let's talk about the Cardinals rotation. Will it be a 5-man group? Will it be a 6-man group? Who will make the group? I don't know. This is where it's going to be a little crazy. Sandy, I guess give us your 5-man or 6-man rotation that you think the Cardinals will be rolling on opening day.
I'll preface with I think it's still going to be a 5-man.
Not an 8-man rotation? Imagine.
You know what? I've always wondered why teams don't just go with a 10-man rotation. And you could have 2 starters, you teach them how to play left field, and you rotate them in and out, a lefty and a righty.
That sounds pretty good to me.
That sounds really fun.
Real quick, there are 2-way players in college basketball. So Andrew, that's like basketball should be your favorite sport because they're all 2-way
players. Yeah. Look at Janai Broom. He's one of the best defenders in the country, and he averages almost 20 points a game.
Look at that.
What's more fun than college basketball? Cardinal baseball. That's it. Okay, so my 5-man rotation. I've got Sonny Gray, Andre Palante, Miles Michaelis, Steven Matson, Eric Fetty. I think that's chalk. That's basic.
Yeah.
I think if they go to a 6-man, there's 2 routes they could go, and one route would be including Liberatore. If that's the case, it won't change who makes the roster for me. It would change his role, obviously. I do think if they did this, I think the right answer would be McGreevy. But since I'm predicting a 5-man rotation, I'll just stick with that. They could obviously go with either Libby or McGreevy in that 6th spot. I just don't think we're even going to get there to make that decision. So that's my 5.
I like it. Well, I like the prediction. I don't necessarily like that. That's the reality.
I agree. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because there's got to be a spot for McGreevy, and there's just not based on the way the Cardinals seem to be putting this together.
Andrew, you thinking 5-man or 6-man group?
I think, first of all, I think if Mo were to pick college basketball picks, he would just not pick a single upset. He would just go straight up. And I don't think we should make predictions for the roster that are very exciting because he tends not to do that. except when he called up Jordan Walker, and then
Shots fired.
Anyway, sorry, Mo. No, I think a 6-man group makes sense for right now. You have guys that are stretched down your bullpen, like Liberatore can give you multiple innings. Kyle Leahy can give you multiple innings. If John King gives you a 9-pitch inning, maybe it goes out there and gets a couple more outs in the next inning. I bet Sandy likes that. So I think there's enough length in the rotation. There's enough guys like Miles Michaelis. If it's his turn, like this is what guys like I forgot his name. What was the innings eater? Jordan Lyles. That's what his job is, to just like
the Chad innings eater.
Yeah, to just go out there and get shelled for 7 innings, and that's fine. Like if that's what you want to do with Miles Michaelis, just to give the young guys more rest, that's totally okay. But I think it's going to be McGreevy will be the 6th starter, and then the other 5 that you just said.
You took the words out of my mouth there, Andrew. I think it's bold, and honestly, it's probably not what's going to happen, but I'm just going to predict that they're going to surprise us, and they're going to go 6-man rotation. And I think they're going to use McGreevy, even though it's a very odd roster construction. I just think they're odd. Sometimes when they do surprises, it's like, oh, like we want you to do things different, but why'd you do it different like that? I kind of think this might be it. And here's kind of how I see it falling out is that Gray is their top guy who they know probably gives you 5, maybe 6 innings, 7 on a great day, but like probably 5, 6. Fetty, you're kind of hoping for 6 innings every time. Palante 5, 6. Michaelis is the guy that I kind of think you're right, Andrew, that if there's a day where the bullpen's kind of depleted, that they won't care and they'll just kind of make him keep going out there and give him the innings. And it's like, okay, if you're going to be on a rotation, you're going to make sure our guys stay fresh. And so we hope you give us 6 good innings, 5 good innings. But like, if it looks like it can go either way, then they'll just go toward, let's give the bullpen guys a couple of or rest day, not really to go to as many of them. And then Matz and McGreevy will finish it out, where I think they see McGreevy, Michaelis, Palante, Fetty, and Gray as all guys that could give you 6 innings on a day, with Michaelis, Fetty, Palante, McGreevy be more of the, okay, maybe 7. Gray, I don't think they'll push that far very often. We saw them not do that very often with him. I'll get into the bullpen later. I think the way they construct the bullpen will help with it because there's going to be multiple guys in there who can go multiple innings, so that if a guy does come out in the 5th inning, they can have someone cover the 6th and 7th to get them to 8th and 9th. Or ideally, you give them 6 innings, you have a guy cover 7th and 8th potentially, and then you can go to the 9th if you need to. So again, it'll be tricky. And as has been said in the chat right now, the Memphis shuttle will probably be used quite frequently in a 6-man rotation scenario. And then eventually an injury will probably happen that brings it down to 5. My worry with this is that I think there could be scenarios where they look ahead at the schedule and they say, man, our bullpen's kind of depleted. We've made a couple roster options recently. We're going to have McGreevy give us kind of one of those bullpen, like has him join the bullpen for a week or so to kind of help figure things out. Or maybe the ideal scenario, I think, is that they get to that route that they just option him down to Memphis and let him start down there and bring up a reliever to help with that mix. And actually, I don't hate that scenario. I hate it if like he's playing well. And so in the moment, I'd probably be really frustrated. Like, why don't you just trade Steven Matz or move him to the bullpen?
Yeah.
But the worst thing would be if they did, McGreevy is going to give us 2 innings for a week or 2. And then we're going to put him back in the rotation. It's like, please don't do that. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they do Libby in the 6-man group, and definitely won't be surprised if they roll for 5-man group that does not include either of those 2 youngsters. So we'll see. So again, this directly impacts the bullpen. So Sandy, you've got the 5-man group. So what does that your bullpen look like then with that?
Yeah, so I get an 8-man pen, which does help my John King agenda, but I'll get to that. So obviously, we're going to go kind of hierarchically here. Ryan Helsley is the first guy in the bullpen. Enough said there. His setup group is going to include Fernandez, Jojo Romero, which is your first lefty. And then I think Liberatore is going to be in that setup group. Since I've got the 5-man rotation, he's going to make the roster either as a starter or reliever. I'm not worried about him starting in AAA. The Cardinals know he's too valuable an arm to do that right now, especially after the year he had in the bullpen last year. That's your second lefty, and that's your 4th reliever. Phil Maton has already been signed. He's going to make the roster. After that, it gets a little tricky. I think the Cardinals are going to want a 3rd lefty, and I think that's going to be John King. So I'm going to roll with that. And then my last 2 guys are Kyle Leahy and Chris Roycroft, although I'm really not sold on Roycroft in the 8th spot. Not that I don't like Roycroft. I think Roycroft's a fine pitcher. I think he's a great 8th reliever for the vast majority of teams. I just think the Cardinals have a lot of options. It could be him. It could be Riley O'Brien. There's a world where it's a Gordon Graceffo, but I don't know. I don't think they're going to go that route. It could even be Andre Granillo. So there are a lot of options for this team, but I'll just repeat my 8 real quick. It's Ryan Helsley, Fernandez, Romero, John King, my guy, Maton, Leahy, Liberatore, and Roycroft. It's 5 righties, 3 lefties. I think that's the way it's going to shake out.
I like it. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Helsley's in there. Fernandez, JoJo, and Maton are all in there. Liberatore, I think, is in there as a longer guy, so then there's 2 more spots to just fill. I think John King can't not make the bullpen. I don't know. I just feel like the results speak for themselves, and if they're bad, then he still has an option left to use. And then probably Kyle Leahy. Out of all those guys, he was stretched out as a starter. So I think with a 6-man rotation, you need to prioritize innings. And he's a guy that's been effective at times. I don't honestly. I think we just put him in D tier to spite Sandy, but
it was wrong. It was incorrect. Justice.
Maybe we'll do that. We'll do that again before the season starts, and then But yeah. Anyway, I want to see you opening day, but you don't live here, so I need to see you give John King a standing ovation, and everyone's like, "Who's that?"
You know what? I'll tape it from my living room in Waco. I'll tape my solo John King standing ovation.
We'll play it. We'll bring a speaker into the stadium and just play it. Well, it's gonna be so quiet when they're like John King, and it's like
it's not gonna be quiet. The people love John King. That's fantastic.
Yeah, maybe.
I hope they don't boo Ollie, because I'll give him a standing ovation.
They probably will boo Ollie, and they will play boo Mo.
And Mo.
And no.
Well, 2 of those are deserved. The other one is not. But we like Ollie. But I only get 7 guys, right?
Yeah. If a 6-man group, yeah. My bullpen, since it's a 6-man group, like you, Andrew, try to think through, okay, well, how can they spare or how can they grab some innings here and there? So obviously you've got Helsley, JoJo, Fernandez as the core 3 at the back end, with Maton and Libby being more high leverage, but also guys that I think they'll use in multi-inning spots if needed. Especially Libby, I think in a rotation, in a spot where you have a 6-man group, you're going to need him to be able to give you a couple innings during various times rather than just the 1-inning spurts. I think John King's a guy you can stretch out over 2. I think they've done that before, so I don't think it's a problem. And then definitely Kyle Leahy can give you 2 or 3 innings at a time. And then I think you've obviously got Roycroft on hand that can come up, and he's a guy who can give you multiple innings. Graceffo's already been pretty open about I'd like to just be on the big league roster in general. And so they want him in the rotation in Memphis right now, but if they need an option, they can bring him up and give multiple innings. O'Brien at some point will be an option. If Anderson doesn't leave, that's someone they could bring up if they need to. I'm trying to think. They could put Thompson on the 60-day at some point, which I think they'll do, they could add another arm to the 40-man roster to bring up and down if they need. The nice thing is the only guys you can't option are Helsley, JoJo, and Maton. I'm fairly positive Libby still has a option, and Fernandez, King, and Leahy all do. So early in the season, you can move those guys up and down as needed to have some fresh arms. Munoz, I think, is a guy that could end up getting in there because of the fact that he can give you 1, 2-inning spurts, 3-inning spurts. Yeah. There's a lot of options they can roll with. Again, this is if they go 6-man. If they don't go 6-man, then I would put Roycroft as that last guy on there. O'Brien being out for a little while, I think worries me. I don't know if he'll make the opening day roster. And to your point, I mean, Anderson already got sent down. I don't think Graceffo will make the opening day roster at this point, but I think he could be an early call up if they need that. And then Granillo, I feel like is probably mid-season, or mid-season could be May, but I don't think he'd be opening day. So we'll see on that. Interesting bullpen group, though. I mean, we're mostly in agreement across the board. It's really just where it makes sense. It's right, if they go 6-man group, it affects what the bullpen looks like, and whoever you have as your center fielder affects what the bench looks like. So, but even then, I think we have the same position players. I think Andrew just had Siani starting center. We had Siani on our bench.
Yeah, it's really similar. Real quick, this is it relates to roster construction. How do you see them using Ryan Helsley this year? Because the best version of Ryan Helsley in 2022 was a version of Ryan Helsley that was capable of getting those 4 and 5 out saves. I don't think they'll do that this year. Are we in agreement there that Ryan Helsley is going to be what he was last year, which is exclusively the 9th inning?
Yep, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think like I'm thinking through that right now. And I think that's probably the biggest shortcoming of this bullpen is that the Cardinals don't have that like secondary closer that great bullpens have. If you look at like the Orioles from a few years ago, where Bautista was the clear closer, but Cano was a guy that you could use in the 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th if you wanted to put him out there against the heart of another team's order. The Cardinals really don't have that guy right now. I'm not saying that guy can't emerge. Although I don't know who would be on this roster. Maybe Fernandez could turn into that type of pitcher, but even him, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Interesting. We'll talk about another time, but an article came out. There are a lot of comments from Surfolio about different guys. So seems like he gave some comments on Jerpy and Roby and stuff. So that's interesting. But yeah, you made a lot of great points there with that. So okay, do you want to go talk about lineups then? How they shake out? I think this because again we're predicting how they'll construct it, not necessarily how we would, right? So, Sandy, what do you think? Do you guys have like a lineup, or do you have righties versus lefties?
I have a lineup, but okay. I can make a separate righty lefty lineup. You just have to give me a second to think through that a bit.
I think we can. I think the righty lineup is going to be the main lineup, so we can at least talk that. Then we could talk about if there's differences with the lefties. So, what's your main lineup / against right-handed pitching?
Well, I think your leadoff hitter is going to be Mason Wynn on opening day. I'm not sure whether I agree with that, but I'll save those comments for later. So I think you're going to get Mason Wynn. I think in the 2-hole, it's going to be Lars Nootbaar. I think third is going to be Donovan, or I think third's going to be Contreras. I don't know. I'm stuck on that. I really don't know. I want it to be Contreras a little higher up maybe, or Contreras 4th, Arenado 5th is probably where I would go with that. So Wynn, Nootbaar, Donovan, or maybe Donovan, Nootbaar. I'm really having trouble figuring out how the Cardinals will do this. But I think it's going to be some combination of that, followed by Contreras 4, Arenado 5, Gorman 6, Walker 7, or maybe Herrera 6, Walker 7, Gorman 8, and then whoever else I've got playing in the outfield, depending on whether it's going to be a Burleson day or a Siani day. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Andrew, what's your lineup?
Yeah, I think Wynn's leading off, even though I don't think that should be the case. Like, Wynn's a good hitter, but there's other guys that you need to get at the top of the lineup. I prefer Donovan just because he has the on-base tool and not necessarily also the power. I want Nootbaar batting closer to the heart of the order just so he swings more and uses the power that he has, the Juan Soto power that he has and the Shohei Ohtani power that he has, according to John Denton. Or maybe he should lead off because Shohei Ohtani leads off. But anyway, I think then you go Contreras, or no, you go Donovan after that, and then Contreras. I would like Nootbaar batting 4th. I think that's something that we've seen this spring, I think.
Yeah.
With him batting 4th, and then Arenado, Ivan Herrera. I'm looking through our Instagram right now and trying to find our lineups, and it's like completely bugging out on me. So I'm just gonna go off memory. Then Herrera, Burleson, and then Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, and then Michael Siani.
Yeah.
I think I might have had 10 people in there because I think I
because you had Burleson in there, so that wouldn't work.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
I just feel like the lineup's going to be so different every day. Yeah. Like, it's so hard to tell how the Cardinals are going to construct this. Just thinking about opening day, but like they've got so many different options, and it feels like there's a lot of guys that are going to be playing different positions. There's going to be a lot of switching around, and they're going to factor in Pages. I don't know how often he'll play, but it feels like he may play 60 games this year. Like, it's just going to be different every single day.
Yeah, for sure. So non-rest days, opening day lineup, primary against right-handed pitching. Here's my lineup. I'm going to go, I'll just name them out, and then I'll give kind of this take. So center field, Lars Nootbaar leading off, Wilson Contreras batting 2nd, Brendan Donovan batting 3rd, Nolan Arenado batting 4th, Burleson batting 5th, Herrera batting 6th, Gorman batting 7th, Walker batting 8th, and Wynn batting 9th. I kind of agree with you guys that I feel like the odds are Wynn is the leadoff hitter, even though he shouldn't be the leadoff hitter. I also don't love Donnie as the 3rd hitter. I kind of would rather swap him and Newt. Actually, my preferred lineup is either doing Donnie, Newt, Wilson at the top, or Donnie, Newt, Wilson, or Wilson. Sorry, Donnie, Wilson, Newt, or Donnie, Newt, Wilson. So I like
I
Newt
agree
or
with
Wilson
you.
the second
like
or
that
third
the
spot
best.
rather than Newt leading off. I know Newt has, like, people have brought this up. Newt has good numbers leading off, but if he wants to unlock himself as a hitter, he needs to tamper down the selectiveness a little bit. And he talks about how he has like a leadoff hitter's mentality, and sometimes that goes against him because he's really selective. I'm like, okay, we'll put it like Newt. Like, if you want to prove yourself as that kind of dynamic bat, I think you profile better in that 3 spot. And I think Donnie plays his best when he works the count, is aggressive when he gets that fastball, but otherwise is like a tough out because you have to really get you can't munch around the corners with a guy like that. So anyways, I don't think I think Nato, and obviously they moved him down throughout the season last year after a while, but I think he's opening day. He's your cleanup hitter. I don't think Arenado bats lower than 4th for them. Burleson, I think they like as like, obviously they bat him 2nd a lot and 3rd a lot last year. So I think they value him on him in the 5th in the order. Obviously, Ollie loves to go right, left when possible. He doesn't force it, but that's where I think you kind of get left. In my lineup, it's left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, right. Win as your 9th hitter, I think he kind of functions as like the second leadoff man. So even though he's not batting first, you get him at the back of the order to get with Newt, Wilson, and Donnie batting behind him. So that's kind of what I think will happen as the opening day lineup. When Ciani's in there, obviously this gets messed up and bounced around. Where Ciani's probably batting last. I think in that scenario, you basically take Burleson out of your lineup and you bump guys up. Yeah. Also, I don't know if they're going to use Burleson in the corner outfields. I don't think he's played any outfield this spring.
I don't think they can. I think the Cardinals need to prioritize defense if you're going to have Jordan Walker out there. Like having Burley and Walker in opposite outfield spots with potentially having Lars Nootbaar in center instead of Ciani, like, that gets really nasty.
Yeah. There's no way there's a day where Newt's in center, Walker's in right, and Burleson's in left. But maybe if Ciani's in center, they'll make it happen every once in a while.
Yeah, but you're like killing your offense even more that way though by, potentially taking Newt out of the lineup. I think my question for you here is like, because I want to put Win 9th, and I think if I put Win 9th, our lineups look very similar because that lets me slide people up a bit, right?
Yep.
Because if Win goes 9th for me, then Arenado can be the cleanup hitter, and Contreras can hit 3rd.
Yep.
Which is what I think should happen. But I think they'll bat Win first. I just think they will. I think the Cardinals are committed to that. I think they want Win to be the leadoff hitter. I think they want him to be the face of the team. Kareem made this point. I think it's a great point, and I agree with it 100%. Now, if that's the case, does Arenado bat 5th? Does Contreras bat 4th? Because I think
Donnie
that's
logical.
5th, I think. Really? So
yeah. Look at a lot of their. I'm looking at a lot of their spring lineups. That's where I have like Donnie batting 3rd. Where I'm like, if you ask me to make a lineup, Donnie does not bat 3rd for me. Yeah. But he's been doing it for them. So I'm like, and a part of that again, you can't totally read into it because some of it's at bats, right? It's just like, okay, we want to give him a top of the lineup this day. But a few times when they've run out the full lineup, Donovan's been 5th. And so I think that could be something they do. And they did that last year at times when they needed some run producing out of him. They put him in that 5th spot. So
it's just I don't know. I don't like moving Donnie down. I'd rather get more at bats for Donovan than Arenado at this point.
Agreed. But I just think, again, predicting what they're going to do, I don't see any world where Nato bats lower than 4th. And I don't think Wilson bats lower than 3rd. I don't think he would be the cleanup guy.
Yeah. I like
I think he's bat 3rd every time he's played. Bat 3rd or 2nd.
He has. I like Wilson's power in the cleanup spot, though, if Win is first. I just think it makes so much sense to hit Win 9th. I'm totally with you on, like, that is what I would do if I was the manager. And the other thing is there's no logical 9th hitter with the primary lineup if it's not Win.
That's true.
Like, there's nobody that makes sense in that spot. You're shoehorning either Gorman or Walker in there. And it's like, Walker is clearly not a 9th hitter. Obviously, right now he might be for the Cardinals, but, like, if you want Walker to be his best self, there's no way he hits in the bottom half of your lineup. That could change. But he definitely is not a 9-hole hitter. And Gorman's not either. Gorman doesn't have the speed to be a 9-hole hitter. Gorman really doesn't have the contact profile to be a 9-hole hitter.
Or a couple things with that. One, like, obviously this is opening day. So like Walker, I don't think it's like a indictment on him to be the 9 hitter. It's like work your way up. If you're hitting well,
I agree.
I don't think it's, I do agree that Win seems to be the more prototypical 9th hitter, but I don't think it's like terrible to have a guy like Gorman as your 9th hitter because like at the end of the day, like once you get into the 5th inning, like your lineup's just just the next guy up. It's not like, because like you can have Nato lead off innings because Donnie made the last out or whatever. So I think if it's possible, I don't know if you guys have your 9 in front of us, but there's a couple questions in the chat where people are like, okay, wait, where'd you have guys? So maybe just run through and say 1, 2, 3, 4 through. So I'll since I've got mine up, I'll say mine first, then whoever's next can go. So I have Nootbaar leading off, Contreras batting second, Donovan batting third, Nato batting fourth, Burleson batting fifth and DHing, Herrera batting sixth, Gorman batting seventh, Walker batting eighth, and Wynn batting ninth.
I go. I put mine in the chat here. There's definitely problems with my lineup. I hate the position the Cardinals are putting themselves in by batting Wynn leadoff. But I've got Wynn number one. I think you have to get at bats for Donovan and Nootbaar, which is why I put them 2 and 3 with Contreras 4. Although I do want to see Contreras in that spot. So it's possible with Arenado 5. It's possible that they throw Donovan in the 5th, slide everyone else up 1. So I'll leave that as an option there. I like Herrera 6th. I think Herrera could be the second best hitter on the team this year. I want to get him those opportunities. And I think the Cardinals recognize that. I know Burleson 7 feels a little strange. I know people say that he had a really good year last year, but Herrera had a better year. And I want to get Herrera more at bats with guys on base. So I've got Burleson 7, Walker 8, Gorman 9. Again, I hate the bottom of this lineup because it just doesn't feel like a prototypical bottom of the lineup type. But that's what the Cardinals, that's the position they put themselves in if Wynn bats leadoff. And I think he will do that.
Fair.
I've got Wynn leading off, then Donovan second, Contreras third, Nootbaar fourth, Arenado fifth, Herrera sixth, then Gorman, Walker, and Siani, unfortunately.
Yeah. So here's a question I've got. So like when the Cardinals have left-handers on the mound, do you think they make any adjustments to the lineup? So do you think, like, I guess in your scenario, Andrew, do you think a Siani potentially goes on the bench that day and they move Newt to center to get a right-handed bat in the lineup?
I think so. I mean, I don't think Siani will play every day. I just think he'll play more than he should, which is the majority of the time. And I don't think he should be really on the roster at all. Like, I don't know.
True.
Anyway.
I think we'll make adjustments.
Yeah.
I think they'll make big adjustments.
What do you think are like some adjustments they would make then?
Well, Luke and Baker gets into the lineup for sure. Yeah. And I mean, this is more me being bullish on Luke and Baker against left-handed pitching, but like I would potentially be throwing him into the 5 spot. I know that sounds really aggressive, but like Luke and Baker really can hit lefties. I mean, he's done it at the minor league level before. When he gets an extended run here, he's going to surprise some people. I mean, he's got a lot of power and he mashes left-handed pitching. Honestly, I think there's a world in which by the end of the year, Luke and Baker's your cleanup hitter against lefties. That's probably a little aggressive, but I think that'll happen. And that's going to slide some people down in the lineup. So you're definitely taking Burleson out. You're not going to play Burleson against left-handed hitters. It's just not going to happen. I also think there's a chance they don't play Gorman against left-handed hitters. Although I don't know.
Who do you put in then, I guess?
That's the problem.
Fermin?
Well, it can't be Fermin because Fermin against anybody is probably about Gorman against lefties. So I think if they're doing that, Donovan becomes your second baseman for the day. And then you keep Newt in center. Maybe you move Newt to a corner and get Siani into the lineup. I don't know. I mean, you're basically creating a new problem, but maybe your defensive alignment's a little stronger. So maybe you are helping yourself in some way.
I guess if they viewed Gorm that bad offensively, then you get the plus defensive metrics from Siani while having the same offensive drop off. So I could see that.
And you're trading up in other spots too. Like Donovan's probably a better defender than Gorman right now at second base.
Oh yeah. I totally agree with that. So I like that. So you got me thinking a little bit. So my initial left-handed lineup is Wynn, Newt, Wilson, Arenado, Yvonne, Baker, Donnie, Walker, Gorm, with the potential for Baker to end up moving up at some point when he just gets a little bit of like run and is producing its left-handed pitching. But if they aren't if they're willing to win at the bottom of the lineup, then I think what you could do is they could lead off Newt against lefties because he's actually good against lefties. So like that works. I've said that wrong before and I was incorrect. Well, Newt has hit lefties. You could do Newt lead off, Wilson batting second, Arenado batting third, Baker in the cleanup, Yvonne batting fifth, Donnie batting sixth, Walker batting seventh, Gorm batting eighth, and then Wynn batting ninth.
Wait, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, so this is what I think could be an interesting lineup. Nootbaar leading off against lefties. Nootbaar leading off. Wilson is batting second. Arenado batting third. Luke and Baker cleanup. Yvonne Herrera fifth. Donnie sixth. Walker seventh. Gorm eighth. Wynn ninth.
We have a really mine is basically that, but putting Wynn at the front.
Yeah,
and so everyone slides down a spot. And I've got Donnie and Herrera switched. I think they'd want to get Donnie up.
If you did win leading off, I could see Donnie being the 9th hitter to kind of be that profile, because he's a little bit below average against lefties. So I could see him being like that 9th hitter, and then later in the game when righties are in, then you've got like Donnie, Win, he's basically the new leadoff hitter in those scenarios. So it could be interesting. But
yeah.
So there's a lot of ways they could go with this. And then again, injuries are going to happen. If Win can't start the year, Walker goes down, Burleson goes down, like all these things change. So
I think one interesting piece of sticking Baker into the 4 or 5 spot against lefties is that when the righty relievers come into the game, you can pinch hit and you can go to Burleson off your bench, and now you can stack Contreras, Burleson. And Burleson against righties is really good. He gets on base a lot. He makes a lot of really like nice line drive contact. That could be a guy that brings runs around to score. He's probably going to be really good at driving in runs late in games against right-handed pitching. Yeah. So you could stack him with Arenado, Donovan, Contreras potentially. So I like that idea that you've got putting Baker up higher too against lefties. Yeah. I also just think Baker's one of the best guys against lefties on this team.
For sure. Yep. Last year, small sample size, had like a 200 WRC plus. Awesome. And then in AAA, he had 1,000 plus OPS against lefties, like 780 against righties. Now, this is something that I do think, I don't know how they're going to handle it yet. The Herrera Paje scenario, because if let's say they want Herrera to DH some, you're probably like Burleson's so good against lefties that if you want him to line up, it's hard to DH Herrera against righties because that takes away from opportunity from Burleson. So do they do it against lefties, which takes away an opportunity from Baker, because there's no other way to fit Baker in the lineup other than DH or first base. Obviously, you're not going to bench Wilson on one of those days. So do they DH Ivan against lefties and let Pedro catch some of those days? Or again, some days, sometimes Ivan will get a full off day. So that's in the cards. But I just do wonder if Baker doesn't get as many starts as you would want against lefties.
I think they need to be honest, and I think they need to really think, is Baker versus lefties or Burleson versus righties more valuable? Because I think there's a bigger power potential with Baker against lefties than Burleson against righties. And I think you need to be willing to at least take some of Burleson's starts away to give them to Baker.
I guess the counter argument I have to that is we've already talked about how a DH only guy is kind of less valuable in general, like the bat, even if it's a good bat. Now, when you talk about a DH only against left-handed pitching, that's like not like there's just not a lot of value in a guy like that.
I agree.
And so I think they probably prioritize the playing time of Ivan, Herrera, and Burleson over getting Baker. I think if they're trying to win, you get Baker lined up against lefties. If you're trying to develop guys, you probably use him more as that weapon off the bench where it's like, hey, this is probably your peak as a player anyways. And so we're not going to prioritize playing time for you. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you're a pinch hit back. I think that's probably more what happens.
My question is, do we not know what we have in Burleson right now? Like, do you think the Cardinals know? I think Burleson's a guy they actually have a lot of information on. I think we know what we have in Alec Burleson. I think he has the potential to hit 20, maybe 25 home runs. I think he makes nice line drive contact. I think he doesn't strike out very often. I also don't think he takes a lot of walks. I think he's a guy that we know can't hit left-handed pitching. I think he's an above average guy against right-handed pitching, but like, I'm not looking at him to take a huge step forward. That's just me. Like, I think Ivan Herrera, yes, you're trying to develop that guy. He could be a stud someday. And I'm not saying Alec Burleson is not a good player. I'm not saying he can't be like a star for this team. I just don't think there's like a ton of developmental concern there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good point. Ivan does have weird reverse splits, so maybe you get some off days there. But I think if he's gonna be a primary catcher in the future, you want to develop him against hitting his lefties. I just think they would use this. You could use the same argument about Burt Baker. I think they don't think he can hit right-handed pitching at a high level.
They know he can't. They know he can't.
And so, and if you know that, then it's like that dude's he's just a less valuable player than Burleson. And so, like. And also, too, like long term, if you're trying to figure out who's part of your core or not, like I think they do need to figure out, is Burleson a guy that we want in our lineup against righties for the future, or is he a guy that we would potentially use in a trade to another team at some point? Baker, I don't really know, unless he somehow ends up being league average or better against righties. Then he becomes a different level of DH.
Agreed.
But even then, like a guy who, if 70% of the starters are right-handed, then Burleson's strength being against right-handed pitching is going to be more of an advantage than Baker against lefties. But I get where it's a weird situation they're in, right? And it's also the fact that they're 1 foot in two worlds. It's like, okay, so are they going to value long term today, or are they going to value short term? Like, I don't know. There was a great article from Lynn Worthy today in the Dispatch, if you guys haven't read it, where he talked about, and Mo is quoted saying all he's going to be judged on walking a thin line this year of the future and the present, and can he do it well? And honestly, it was like they kind of admitted they put him in a tough spot again. And he's like, I have confidence in him, but it's not me who's going to judge the future of it anymore. And so I feel bad for Ollie because shows to the ballpark, and it's like you can't win because if you prioritize the present, you're going to frustrate all of us because the future needs to be prioritized. If you lose a game, it's not helpful for your job. So
I think it's so funny that you have the Cardinals who already have like a bunch of half DHs on the roster, right? Like Arenado's going to DH a little bit, Contreras is going to DH a little bit, Herrera's going to DH a little bit, Donovan's going to DH a little bit, Nootbaar might even DH a little bit, and Walker feels like a future DH to some people because he still isn't a good outfielder. And you're going to carry 2 DHs as well, 2 like only DH guys in Burleson and Baker. But they've put themselves in this roster construction position. It's just so odd. You've got like 7 guys that might get DH plate appearances this year. And that's a lot when 2 of them, and to some people, 3 of them, if you're talking about Walker, can only DH.
Yeah. Woof. Well,
yeah.
Welcome Cardinal baseball right now. So I think honestly soon it would be interesting talking about. There's another piece. Gould did a sit down with Mo. I don't know if you guys have read it yet. Really interesting. And Mo seemed very defensive at times about some things that Gould asked him. But then also when Derek asked him about the idea of like, is he concerned about St. Louis competing like in the market size in the future? And Mo was like, yeah, I do. And so I'm very curious to see what they kind of think the direction of this club is. And I'm really starting to believe more and more that this is like, even internally, like, yeah, we're kind of rebuilding right now, but we're trying to keep the fans interested as much as possible. So,
but do they realize that we're not like dumb? I don't know.
I don't think they do.
Well, people that watch this podcast are just really smart.
Even you, Mo.
If you're out there watching, I respect all you've done for this organization, but come on, we gotta make some hard decisions.
Yeah, for real. Rebuilding by making no moves. It's an oxymoron, but so yeah, it's just one of those tough things too, where it's like, I feel we talked about it before. It's like, Mo, you had a good first half of your tenure, so it's kind of butchered the end of this pretty tough. So
I think I'm still going to be really sad when Mo retires, though. Like, part of me just is still going to be sad because I don't know. I can criticize Mo a lot, and I do these days. But like, part of me is still just going to be like, man, I loved him as a GM for a while there. I will always mourn the loss of what. I mean, I think Mo was one of the better GMs in baseball for a long time.
True.
I'm gonna miss that version of him, and I probably idealize him a little too much. But I will be pretty sad when he steps aside. So it'll be the end of an era in some ways, the era of my childhood of Cardinal baseball.
At the very least, it'll be weird.
I don't know.
Because, like, I mean, honestly, like, sometimes people talk about the future, and it's like, well, how can I believe in this farm system? How can I believe in the future? They won't spend in the future. It's like, we don't know the same old Cardinals. Like, we don't. It's been 2 decades of this guy. So it's different leadership. So it's like, it's going to be kind of crazy. And honestly, as much as I believe in the Bloom era, I'm a firm believer of this direction. Change doesn't necessarily mean it'll be better. Like, Bloom this could implode, right? Like, it's just one of those tough things that we don't really know what's going to happen. And I'm excited, and I think they're trending in the right direction. But it is a little scary. I think most of us would rather see the change, though, than continue the same old. But anyways, it'll be interesting. I don't know. We went very big picture and like philosophical here at the end when we're just talking about roster construction. But Bloom is different. Because think about like Mozeliak thread the needle where they won the World Series, where they had the top farm system in all baseball, right? Like, and we've seen from the Rays and the Guardians and all these, and what he did in Boston, like, you can build up a farm system and start spending again. Like, will the Cardinals spend in 2026? I doubt it. Will they spend in 2027? Maybe they start to, but not really. It might be till 2028, 2029 until they really get back in that top 10 payroll. But I do think Bloom's different because I don't think the DeWitts are moving. Some people think, and maybe I'm wrong, the DeWitts are moving toward a bottom 3rd payroll and they want to be the Rays and the Guardians. I don't think that's true.
I worry about it a little bit.
I don't think they're going to go that far. Could they hover in the 15-14 range too much? Maybe. But I think when they're pushing, I think they'll get around 10 again.
I just think about the future of the market of St. Louis, though. Like, some of these other markets are growing, and some of these other markets should be spending more, and I think they will. I think like general payroll in baseball is going up. And I just think that like St. Louis is not growing, like the DeWitt's TV contract is not getting bigger like some of these other teams are. And that's what I worry about.
Well, they have that dynamic too, but they are a regional brand though. They aren't just St. Louis, right? Like you can they reach Arkansas, they reach Illinois, they reach Indiana, but like Iowa, all these other stuff.
Are there still like, because obviously it's the radio signal and everything back in the day where it's like people in Arkansas just got KMOX, right? Like people in Iowa got KMOX and they listen to Cardinals games. But like, does the new model? I don't know. This is definitely a topic for another day.
For real, it is. No, that's an interesting point. It's like, and that's something I'm worried about. I'm worried about baseball as a whole right now.
And like, blackouts. The blackouts are changing everything because I have cousins that live in Iowa that are Cardinals fans, but they can't watch the games. They're blacked out.
Well, they can now.
Yeah, now but like this year. Like for the last few years, they haven't been able to watch the games.
Yeah. But
I think a lot of people switched.
We've gotten really big picture here, and also we could talk about who should have gotten Bryce Harper and Max Scherzer. I'm writing this article I come back to every once in a while about all the things they could have done, how different things could have went. It's so interesting, but I'm worried about the future of baseball because I don't know if I think they again, not that it's gonna die, but like I think honestly, I might see a world where like this happened to hockey, where they had to like slash payrolls and slash like the revenue sharing, and like guys started making way less money because the sport just wasn't as profitable. I know.
I mean, neither of you guys stayed up until 5 a.m. over the last 2 days, did you?
Okay.
I think baseball is going to be just fine. Like,
no. Whatever happens in international markets, baseball will always make the vast majority of its money in the U.S. And if they fumble the bag here, it will hurt them.
Again, I'm not talking about it's gonna like fall off totally, but like again, but like big picture, if baseball as a whole is suffering, a market like St. Louis is going to be significantly impacted by it because to your point, Sandy, the average kid in Arkansas just doesn't care anymore. And they had that huge advantage of baseball super popular. Oh, Arkansas, we don't have a team, but guess who reaches us? The St. Louis Cardinals. I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan. And I was like, well, guess what? I watch the NBA and I watch TikTok and do all these other things. I don't care about baseball. I think that's where it ends up hurting a market like St. Louis, where the Dodgers will be fine, New York will be fine, all these teams will be fine. But when you're like the mid-market team that wants to punch above its weight class, again, the DeWitts can spend more than they do, but we know what kind of ownership they are, right? They're not going to do Steve Cohen thing where they're going to lose money. That's where I'm worried about the future of baseball, is that it can hurt the mid-market teams a lot.
100%.
I'm writing about this too right now too. Like baseball is people are getting so smart. Like it's hard to have an advantage now. The Cardinals fell behind, but like because they didn't invest. But once they reach all these investments, they're not going to be ahead of the curve. They're going to have caught up. And I think it's a lot harder because everyone has access to all this information now. People don't always use it correctly, and that's where you can get the advantages. But I think you're going to get back to a place where now everyone's got the same access technology. You've got the same information. You don't really have a more advanced analytics department than other people. Again, some people do it better than others, obviously. But like when you have the Dodgers who are also incredible with their analytics and knowing how to get the most out of players, and they can spend all that money, then it's like, how do you beat them? It's just luck at that point, right?
It's really tough. Yeah.
Baseball gets tough.
Yeah. I mean, if you talk to anybody in Indiana, like Southern Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, like even parts of Kansas, parts of Oklahoma, Iowa, Nebraska. If you talk to anybody in those states over the age of like 60, it's a lot of Cardinals fans. But a lot of people younger than that, like first off, these other teams popped up, right? So you had like expansion teams, you had teams moved out there, and like the Cardinals fan base is absolutely shrinking right now. Like there's no argument there. It is getting smaller. And a lot of these other fan bases are either growing or at least like replacing themselves at a normal rate. And you're absolutely right. Like Josh, these others, like the NBA exploded in popularity in the 90s, and it's huge among millennials and like Gen Zers like us. And like baseball is not as big. You're absolutely right. Like the future of baseball fandom for mid-market teams, especially like the Cardinals. I mean, my dad tells me, so he went to Baylor too, which is in Waco, Texas. It's about 12 hours south of St. Louis by car. He used to be able to park his car on a hill and on a clear night tune into KMOX here. Like KMOX doesn't even really reach like that far outside of St. Louis city limits now. You know, the Cardinals just don't have the same cultural influence and relevance they had. So yeah, we've gone really big picture, probably off topic, but it is frightening to think about, can the Cardinals continue to be a big brand?
Yeah. We'll see. And that means they have to, like, this Bloom era is so important. They got to nail it. They got to figure this out quickly, which I think is part of the reason why they're scared to full scale rebuild right now. They're scared to trigger those guys because like, hey, if we don't make this revenue now and this doesn't work in 2026, 2027, we're gonna lose our fans. And so, anyways, but they put themselves in this position. That's their fault. And so, a couple other things though too, like very scary. I mean, NBA, even though that's exploded popularity, like even they're talking about that they don't necessarily have the viewership that they like.
They've taken a ton of games off TV in the last few years.
And so it's like so it's like even a product like the NBA that I think most people would agree is far more popular than MLB right now is also like worried about. Like NFL is the only one that's not worried about anything.
Yeah, the NFL's king.
Also, I guess we can finish with this. Tom Ackerman, we love you.
But you're not the president.
But yeah, you're not the president.
It's not you.
That's Kareem. So
he doesn't know. He has no idea.
He doesn't know.
We'll have to tell him.
We'll have to tell him. Get Kareem on his radar. That's for sure. So, hey, appreciate you guys all tuning in today. It's a fun conversation. We talked about a lot of things. By the next time we chat, probably on Sunday again, we'll probably have a pretty good idea of what the opening day roster looks like because it should be announced by then. And then we'll be able to actually talk about the season coming up. And so I'm excited for baseball to be back. I just am. So I'm ready for watching baseball here soon. Appreciate you all tuning in as always. Like and subscribe helps the channel a ton. Go check out 314 Sports Cards Collectibles. Go check out Underdog, especially if you're watching college basketball. It's a fun way to follow a game and do some pick'ems on that. If you need some tips, hopefully we'll post some from Sandy because usually he does pretty well with those. Otherwise, we'll see you guys on Sunday. Thanks for tuning in.